please welcome digital editor Fortune, Andrew Nuska.
How are we, everyone? How are we, everyone? There we go. Come on, you got to be excited. You're at Dreamforce, right? I'm very excited to moderate this session. It's on the future of financial services, and let's give a round of applause for my panelists who should come out right now. Come on out. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
These are extremely cushy
Thank
chairs,
you.
I just want to say. So if I fall asleep, you'll know why. All right. As a matter of introduction, to my immediate right, we have Baron Davis, the founder of Business Inside the Game, and I will have you explain what that is in a second. To his right, we've got Sally Krawcheck, the CEO of Ellevest. Again, I'll have you explain. And then to her right, Barry McCarthy, the CEO of the Deluxe Corporation. All right, I have a quick question for you, and that is, I had a CEO come to Fortune's offices years ago and tell me that we couldn't really disrupt the financial services industry because it's built on stability. The very point of it is that it shouldn't be disrupted. I mean, yeah, you can eat around the edges a little bit, but you really can't fundamentally change it because if you were to disrupt the financial industry, well, my God, we wouldn't be able to pay people, we wouldn't be able to exchange money. And I can see how that would be a point. So I ask all three of you to start off, is he full of it?
Absolutely. I think some of the most fundamental transformation in how commerce is happening and how people's lives are being affected is absolutely in the delivery of financial services. Everything from how payments are processed, how they get access to capital, and the relationship they have with their financial institution, or all of the non-financial institutions that are entering the marketplace to provide a solution that'll be more consumer appealing.
Barry, why don't you explain what it is your company does so we can understand your perspective. Most people, if they know of your company, they know, they associate it with the check.
Yes. So Deluxe is a proud 105-year-old institution that was founded by a gentleman named W.R. Hotchkiss, and his invention was the checkbook. And he fundamentally transformed the way we all make payments, even still today. But we've moved well beyond checks. So checks are less than 40% of our revenue today. 60% come from a variety of other services that are payments-based, that are cloud and database services, promotional products, and of course our legacy check business. And we're in the middle of a fundamental transformation to become a trusted business technology company. And we're well on that transformation already. And we support 5 million small businesses. We host 4.5 million small business websites. 4,600 financial institutions rely on us, and we support 180 of the top 200 financial institutions. So most people in the room probably had no idea who Deluxe was and who Deluxe has become, but we play an absolutely fundamental role in the ecosystem, the commerce ecosystem globally.
Yeah, and as I was telling him backstage, it's probably one of the best company names of all time, right? Deluxe. How great. Sally, you were looking at me. Your eyes were like burning holes through my head when I said that the financial services industry couldn't be disrupted. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so of course it can be. And I think, given who you've got on the panel, of course we believe that it can be. I can tell you what the financial services industry has done a very good job of in slowing their disruption is it's managed to throw up very high barriers to exit for its customers and its users. So think about it. We sit here today in which individuals in this country in any given year are more likely to divorce their spouse than leave their bank. And most people actually like their spouse better than they like their bank. And the reason is if you think about leaving your bank, you get exhausted immediately, right? I'm going to leave all my history. I'm going to leave my account numbers. I've got the automatic bill pay. I've got the direct deposit. Oh, wait, here's another one. What rate will I get at this bank versus that bank? One time, and it's been a few years, but at one point, I said, I wonder what interest rate I'm being paid on my checking account. And so I downloaded a 134-page checking account agreement from a bank website where it told me how they calculated my interest rate in a leap year, but nowhere could I find the actual interest rate. And I had to actually go in and calculate what they had paid me in order to figure it out. Likewise, if you go over to the wealth management business, which is what Ellevest is in, a handful of years ago, I reached out to my financial advisor as you might imagine, the best financial advisor at the company since I ran it. And I said, hey, for fun, let's figure out exactly how much money I paid you last year. How many dollars? And so we started with the account statement for fun. And of course, the transaction was in a line called Other. And then we started to, he and I knew of a number of the hidden fees that were there. But by the time we got to payment for order flow, right, the bonds that they were trading on my behalf and what the spread was, we had to give up. And so there's a lack of transparency around fees and around your own information, which of course technology is going to disrupt at some point and is beginning to be disrupted today, that will lower those barriers to exit and make the way for many, many more new entrants.
I actually have a follow-up question about that, which, you built your career in some of the grandest financial institutions, and now you're the upstart, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you're actually doing there, and frankly, why is our financial services so customer hostile?
Yeah. Well, because they've been able to be. Your words, not mine. Because they've been able to. And by the way, these results of people not leaving are happening despite the fact that many of these big banks have negative net promoter scores. Negative, right? And look, the reason I started Ellevest was because I had an insight that women don't invest as much as men do. That it cost women, and the women in this room, hundreds of thousands, for some millions of dollars over the course of their lives. My old industry, which happens to be overwhelmingly male, probably not surprisingly, put in place marketing programs to tell women to change your behavior and invest. And I had this insight, well, maybe rather than asking women to change, what if we built a company all around thousands of hours of research into what will motivate women to invest, what will motivate us to get into financial control. And to be quite honest, I would have been very happy to do it in a big company with all the resources of a big company. But it's easier, it's not easy, it's horrible, but it's easier to do it as a startup because you don't have to change the culture, you don't have to, and when it became clear I couldn't convince folks. So I, like you, started off, women don't need their own investing platform. And I said, forget about what I think. What I know is we're not investing as much. Other niches haven't worked. Let's try something different, and Ellevest is off to a really terrific start.
Right. Thank you for that. Talking about customer experience, Baron, you've been an advocate for basically players' financial wellness. I understand you played some sports when you were younger. And so I'd love to understand a little bit better about your perspective on that and what you're doing about it, because you have a number of different ventures.
Yeah, I think, just to piggyback on what was said is, I think on our side of the thing, of the equation, when you're talking about the culture, or you're talking about, you look at the athlete, you look at the musician, the entertainer, the first thing you talk about is them going broke. Right, so it's the information side that I think should also be, has a lot of room to be disrupted, and that information needs to start traveling, across the city to, the people in the inner city, to young millennials that are trying to, figure out how to invest, when to invest, what to invest in. And so for me, it's like always looking at, my career as an athlete and saying, how do you take ownership, right, and learning the financial tools that you need. Just learn enough to not be afraid to move banks, right? Mm-hmm. Understand that, it's your money, and you probably have a lot more money as an athlete, right, than a lot of people who are working at Fortune 500 companies. But I think the fear, right, there's a great fear of numbers, there's a great fear of paperwork and all these different things that, you need. And so the access and the information is not there. And I think that when you talk about financial services being disrupted, if you create that information, then you'll see a whole different culture of people, women, African Americans, just people of different color, just basically pouring into learning how to, change the culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about what athletes, performers, what do they want? Do they just want to understand? They want a handle on their world? I imagine it's especially difficult because, a lot of those vocations start young
Yeah.
And it's not like you get financial 101
Right.
on the way to, the championship or the grand performance or whatever it is. What do they want? They just want the information?
Just the information. They want to be on the team.
I see.
Right. I always say when I got my first $1 million check in the NBA and I got no instructions. Right. So I didn't know what to do with it. And so for any player or anybody that can accumulate wealth that fast, you really want to be on the right team. And if you're on the right team, you're going to learn from each and every individual or teammate, right? And they all have something great or intangible to bring to the table. I think that is going to ultimately strengthen, the athlete to make better decisions, right? Make better investments, because we have, a leveraging power, and a branding power that goes along with the money that we could be investing.
Barry, do people just say, you know what I want? Checks?
I
hate to be digging on checks, but I'm surprised that they still exist, and there's a lot of good reason for that, right?
I spent the last 14 years of my career before coming to Deluxe at a company called First Data, and I spent my entire 14-year experience trying to get rid of the check. So there's some irony in it, but what we really see is that for consumer payments, there are lots of alternatives today. And we see a huge opportunity that we're going to be harnessing at Deluxe to transform B2B payments. So for a number of use cases today, the only viable alternative is a check.
Yeah.
So if you imagine a restaurant and the food truck comes back to the back door, they're not going to unload $1,000 worth of steaks and a couple $1,000 worth of cases of wine if they're not going to get paid. And the only viable way to make that payment today is via check. The same is true for insurance companies trying to make disbursements to many different parties. They don't have a way besides a check to make that effectively or efficiently. So a check is still a very good use case, but we think there's fundamental opportunity to digitize that whole experience, and Deluxe absolutely intends to lead the way there. And with the footprint we have with millions of small businesses, thousands of financial institutions, we think we're uniquely positioned to lead that digital frontier.
What are the difficulties in making that change? And why hasn't this happened already? Help me understand. Because it's clearly better, right? Why would you want to print something on paper? It's 2019 almost.
If you think about what it takes to be successful in any financial service, it starts with consumers always want choice, and they want equal access to solutions. So that's sort of foundational. But I think the next thing they want to know is that it's trusted and transparent, so they understand what it's going to cost, that it's easy and convenient, so it doesn't take a lot of hassle and it's not difficult to accomplish. And there's some level of ubiquity or interoperability. And that's why checks still have a role today, because they fill that gap. But checks are not about the future. Digitizing those payments and taking the use cases where checks are valuable today and transforming that to a digital horizon where the consumer or the business still has choice and they feel that they've got trust and confidence in the system. And there's a huge opportunity. I think it's somewhere around $14 trillion that are still being transacted that way. Yeah. So we think we've got a great opportunity to digitize that pathway.
Yeah. The limitation of standards is very interesting. Sally, your whole category is based on technology today. And I would love to understand a little bit better how technology has made it possible to do what your company does today, and kind of where that fits in the greater spectrum of financial services.
I thought you were going to say, what do women want?
I'm definitely not going to say that. I want to know what everyone wants, right?
Well, the women are 51% of the population, True. So there's some good ways to everyone. P.S., because I was ready to answer it, I'm just going to answer it. It's actually not what they tell you they want. When you were saying what the athletes want, and you said financial education, it's interesting because women will tell you they want financial education, and they'll tell you it 18 times. And by the 19th time, you've finally broken her down. And with an investing solution, she says, actually, I don't have time for this. I'm not interested. I could buy a book. I keep getting these financial education courses. What I really want is someone I can trust who will practically get me from where I am today to where I want to be, right? And so at Ellevest, what we've built is what I call intentional investing. And it's investing not to outperform the market, not even just to have more money. It's taking her through a journey in which she identifies what she wants in her life. I want to retire and, really important, not outlive my retirement savings. So having an investing algorithm that recognizes she's a woman may not seem like a big deal, but when women earn less over the course of their lives, our salaries peak sooner, and we die later, recognizing who she is important. And so I don't want to die before I run out of money. I want to die with money. That's what I wanted to say. Not that much. Yeah, whatever.
You can't take it with you, you know?
I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. I want to buy a house in 6 years. I want to have a kid. I want to trip around the world. I want to start a business. Elevest, can I do that? Right? And then we put together, we say yay or nay. We allow her to prioritize. No, get a condo, not a house. All this is happening online. Then we provide a highly customized investment portfolio that isn't structured to give her the most risk to try to outperform the market, but actually as little risk as we can in order to get her to her goal in the vast majority of markets. What we're doing with these personalized investment portfolios, you need technology to do. It's beyond the capacity of a human mind, and that's before we get into the minds of humans as advisors, where we panic when markets are tough, right? Where we have inbred biases. And so at Elevest, we've worked to take those biases out, put the intelligence in, and really customize to her journey. And hey, don't you need a person? Sure, and we have people. We have client service people, we have financial advisors, we have plenty of people. What we found is that when you can highly customize an experience as has never been done for her before, she views herself as having a relationship with the company.
Right, and a good one, not like the negative net promoter one that you mentioned earlier, right?
So it's funny, I love to joke because we're really transforming women's lives. Money is women's #1 source of stress. The #1 driver of our confidence and our ability to achieve our future actually is, are we taking financial control? Are we investing and are we saving? And so this unbelievable thing is happening right now, which is I'll walk through an airport and a young woman will stop me and say, is that an Elevest bag? I'm first generation. My parents, let's face it, the old investment minimums, I'm going to be a little sparky here. The old investment minimums are sexist and racist, right? Because if they're at a certain minimum, only certain people can access them.
Yep.
And I'll have a young woman, a first generation, stop me and say, I'm investing for the first time, I put in $100 with you. I cried, and then she'll start to cry. And I love to joke, I've made people cry before, because I worked at a big bank. It wasn't always tears of joy, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Did I just take that too far, do you think?
No.
Okay.
You're good. You're
Okay.
good. So what I'm hearing is the algorithms, as well as your strategic focus, are affording access and certainly personalization to a degree that maybe we didn't have before. Baron, what is technology doing for this problem that you articulated earlier? Like, what is it allowing you to reach folks, these athletes who would normally?
For us, it's like building a community and an ecosystem, right? Okay. And so as we go about with Business Inside the Game, it's dinners, fireside chats, summits at All-Star Weekend, and it's allowing us as a community to kind of engage, share information, also share deal flow, and for us from a venture studio side, it gives us the opportunity to start to organize and the sort, whether they're ideas, what round companies are in, and so. We kind of sit back and create, whatever dashboard we want to create that communication. And then we go out in our dinners and fireside chats, and then that's how we kind of rally the community to come back to whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's a company that we want to invest in. So for us, it's more so building a model, right? Using technology to build a model of communication and accessibility, so then we can use our brand power to basically help entrepreneurs, gain more access to like the tools that the 1% have. So, it's for us is using technology to build cheat codes, right? I grew up playing video games. I need all the cheat codes. I don't know, VC, great, all that. But it's like, how do you take, the ingredients and the fabrics of, all the different financial services companies, right? How do you take, what a VC is, what private equity is, and how do you shrink wrap that and build a model that is more fitting towards us and what we do and when we wake up, you know, how we're able to access companies from a high corporate standpoint, even startups. And so if you build that ecosystem and use technology to help those communication tools happen, then you'll see a lot more success in a venture fund than what a normal like venture fund is. Because, you know, they say you got 2 out of 10. Like, I couldn't imagine, you know, shooting 20% from the free throw line. You can't tell Steph Curry that. So we want to be 8 out of 10, you know?
So what I'm hearing is that you're the game genie for financial wellness for certain groups of people.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
There you go.
much.
I'm throwing you a bone there. There you go. Let's talk a little bit about, Barry, let's talk a little bit about your business. You're looking at, well, you're expanding beyond the check, and you're looking at cloud and payments and all these other things. Tell us a little bit about those, because I think that's kind of reflective of where things are going in the industry.
Well, we're very focused on growing the 2 businesses which are payments and our cloud-based services.
Yeah.
In our payments business, we had a big announcement this morning where we signed a major deal with Synchrony Financial to be their partner on the back end for treasury management services. It's the single largest deal, one of the top 4 deals, that we've signed as a company in the last decade.
Yeah.
So it's a very important and material contract for us. So we have a variety of services, everything from payroll services for small businesses to treasury management for banks, billers, et cetera. In our cloud-based services, we have a number of services for small businesses, everything from digital dashboards, but we also can help businesses for their whole life cycle. From the moment they incorporate, we have cloud-based incorporation services. First thing they want to do is get online. We help them build a logo, then we do web design, and then we help them host their website, and then we do data-driven marketing. So at a very large scale, most people have no idea, or nobody thinks about Deluxe as being a data company, but on behalf of many of the largest institutions, we actually help them find the next customer. Sometimes prime customers, sometimes subprime customers, but we have access to data, not only data we have available to us, but we can aggregate data from multiple sources to help them find their next set of customers.
So you're taking a more well-rounded approach to serving small businesses, right? Far beyond just the C word that I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. What do they want? Just the same question I asked these 2. What do your customers want when they're, and why are you offering all of these services?
Absolutely. So we really think about the company as having 3 major sources of customers. One, of course, are financial institutions and their customers. Mm-hmm. The second are small businesses in general, but also enterprises. So major enterprises, auto manufacturers, real estate companies are also customers of the company. But if we talk about small business in particular, small businesses are focused, and they're in a small business for a reason. Because they need to support a family, and they're in a type of business that they have passion for. So they want to do more for their passion than they want to think about managing their business. Mm-hmm. So to the degree to which we can simplify their life, make financial management easier for them, managing the day-to-day operation of their company better, more efficient, to give them more time, whether that's to spend with their family or to do the things, the reason why they're in the business in the first place, incredibly important. So our solutions are all intended to do that. Make it easy for that small business throughout its life cycle, from inception through growth, to help them succeed and make their life easier.
Yeah. Just to add to that, you were telling me a little bit backstage about how hard it has been to transform a company. So setting aside all the areas that you're actually trying to turn a very, very old company around a corner. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because some of the details are kind of gory.
Do you know, Deluxe, I said earlier, is a very proud 105-year-old company. Mm-hmm. It pays a dividend. We've been buying back stock. Very financially robust and secure company. But to become the company we want to become, we need to behave and respond and be much more agile and much more like a technology company. So in order to undertake that fundamental transformation, we've done a bunch of things, especially around culture. The first thing we did was we made everyone in our company equity holders. And we did that within the first 3 or 4 months of joining the company. Because now everyone is aligned with the success of the company and the success of our customers. So it's helping to drive a very different mindset. Second big thing we're looking at is how do we change the fundamental technology infrastructure of the company so we can operate as one enterprise. Mm-hmm. Prior to my arriving, the company made a number of transactions and acquisitions. Actually, I think made 52 in the 7 years before I arrived, but hadn't really fully integrated them. So as a result, we inherited 50-something different ERP systems, 15 different CRMs, and we have looked to partners like Salesforce to be a big part of that technology transformation. And we call all of that, our program, we call it One Deluxe, going and operating from a company of companies to operating as a company of products that thinks about our customers and what the customer needs over their life cycle. Rather than trying to sell an individual customer point solution, we try to solve their problem over their entire lifespan.
Right, right. That's incredible. I told you, the details were gory. Sally, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You said in a moment of candor, racist, sexist policies in financial industry in the past. You know, one of the things we cover a lot at Fortune magazine is the bias in artificial intelligence and in data sets and you know, in these various ways. Here we are automating everything, and we are at risk because, of course, at the end of the day, there are humans behind it all.
Yep.
We're at risk of repeating past mistakes. How are you thinking about that now? Because algorithms are so important to your business.
And we're seeing it every day. So first of all, I didn't say racist and sexist policies.
Yeah,
I
forgive
said that the minimums are inherently racist and sexist,
Yeah.
which, by the way, nobody meant. Nobody meant for it to be that way. And when I was running these businesses, I never, frankly, had that thought. It was only when it was important to me at Ellevest that we had no minimum so that we could be accessible to people who had found investing to be inaccessible. And as I began to look at who our user base is, realizing the tilt we have there and saying, oh, of course, it's because we are accessible. And so, again, I think it's not evil people, or maybe there's an evil person over there, but it's not evil people. It's when you take blindly historical results and feed them into an algorithm, you're going to come out with biased, outcomes. I mean, we just saw last week that with the new Apple Card, the algorithm that Goldman had gave 20 times the credit limit to a man than it did to his wife. The difference, besides gender, being that her credit score was better than his. We also saw just a couple of weeks ago that Facebook ads for financial services capabilities were going more to men and not to women. Now, of course, some people may be like, oh, great, fewer ads. But if fewer ads means fewer offers and means fewer capabilities and means of getting money, then that's a real problem. And so we still see that these things are biased. And look, we see, everywhere we look in financial services, because it is so overwhelmingly male, because it hasn't had sort of a signature Me Too moment. People thought that moment was coming with Ken Fisher, who is the founder and I think chairman of the second largest registered investment advisor, made some creepy comments from a stage. It was, the press said this is the Me Too moment. There were assets that were withdrawn from his firm, and sitting here a week ago, he had, over the space of just a few weeks, more assets under management than he did when he made the creepy comments, right? So he had assets removed, but he had more assets go to them. And so if as an industry and as users and consumers of an industry, if we're not going to act with our money and we're not going to care and we're not going to demand fairness, then we're not going to get it. And look, one of the reasons, I started an Ellevest high net worth business, I wasn't going to do it. But it was really based on some high net worth women telling me, we're ready to take action. And we're tired of doing business with the companies that haven't supported us, and we're tired of doing business with companies at which we wouldn't let our daughters work. And when we have more of that, we as consumers can drive change, and until we do, I don't know how much motivation there is for it.
Yeah. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this?
It's the marketing and the branding, right? We partnered with Salesforce to do a dinner in LA that was about, brand purpose. And the whole theme was about, tag your it, tag your lit, lighten the torch for, the next generation. And so, when you're looking at, the consumer, right, or you're looking at a client, you're forgetting, that it's a us too movement. You know what I mean? And so there's a group of people that are misinformed, that don't have the access, that want the access, and so that also has, you know, a lot to do with the way that a lot of these big companies are marketing themselves, right? The way that, you know, when the ads come across, they don't pertain to me. You know what I mean? There's nothing that I can learn from that. And so it's really another responsibility, right, to be able to create those narratives, to create those themes, you know, to bring the right people in the room to understand that it's more of the conversation that we need to have, right? And we need to have more of these smaller conversations with people who are real and who want to do it, so we understand how to do it. And then also it's like cutting through the fat, right? For athletes, you know, we got to deal with UBS or Morgan Stanley, and it's like one person there, and they will never let you meet the president or anybody. You know, it's like, no, you stay right here. Let me get that money. You know what I mean? Let me trade for you. And you know, we also think like small business people, right? And so, but we don't have the access, you know, to the people or the team that'll help us, you know, create the wealth that we want to create, or even create the smaller businesses to make our neighborhoods, right, less gentrified and more, you know, more sustainable.
Yeah. But this is, if I could sort of interject, I think if we want to make the individuals who are in traditional financial services companies a little bit nervous right now, you know, I think it is when you look at the power of technology and having ever more customized capabilities, products, platforms, et cetera, when you look also at the ability of technology to help people form what are real relationships with companies because of the highly personalized capabilities they're getting. When we look at technology as a means to take down the high barriers to exit that I talked about before, that's another way. But it's also individuals, as they get more, today we hear from individuals all the time, I want to use my dollars with companies whose values align with mine. I just don't know if they do. And so we sit here today, women are 51% of the population, and we direct 80 to 85% of consumer spending. And when we talk to women, they say, I'd love to. But, you know, I mean, my gosh, you know, I'm going to go and look and see if their board has got full representation on it. I don't know who they, you know, gave political dollars to, you know, what their policies are, did they close their gender pay gap or not? And of course, technology is going to make that information more available. And beware, you know, when it does. We all saw, you know, with SoulCycle, with the backlash that they received from their community when it felt like their values weren't aligning with what they had expressed to their community. And I tell you, it wasn't that many weeks ago, I was happened to be in Santa Monica on a Saturday morning and went to a SoulCycle class. You're from Cali. Like I thought, I'm never getting.
Santa Monica.
I'm like, I'm never getting in the SoulCycle class in Santa Monica on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. In January, sorry, what month are we in? Where are we? November and October. It was half empty.
Yeah.
And so the backlash wasn't a minute and just hold your breath and get by it. You know, in an October morning on a Saturday in Santa Monica, the thing was half empty.
Yeah.
I think people are fed up, right? You know, and I think to your point, you were saying, you know, women are a niche market, right? And it's like, all right, so niche. That's the culture, that's the community, right? And so we're not really pouring into, you know, these subgenres or these niche markets and supercharging them, empowering them, so we're not getting anything back in return, right? And so that's why the bar keeps going up, the minimums get higher, right? And the access becomes, you know, less and less attainable.
Yeah.
So I agree, you know, that if we attack these niche markets, if we supercharge them, if we really target that message, then you're talking about ecosystem, you're talking about community, and you're talking about the people who are going to buy the product, right? The consumer is going to dictate and tell you, oh, we don't like SoulCycle, you know, we like this because this sits more with who we are, you know, as a community. So.
And
The
there's
challenge, as you know, with a big company, is it takes so much to move the needle.
It does.
Right? And so if you're thinking about a market that you view as niche today, if we do all this work and we have to change our culture and change the way, then what are we going to add, like 2 pennies per share to the friggin' earnings? I don't know.
Not at Deluxe. We've got great EPS. So But I think this whole notion of values is an incredibly important point, not only in how we choose to operate our companies, but how we show up in our communities.
Yeah.
And so at Deluxe, we're very committed to supporting small business. And so we produce a television program on Hulu and Prime called The Small Business Revolution. And we go to a small town, we help them renovate Main Street, we help 6 small businesses with financial advice, give them financial literacy, teach them how to market themselves better, how to price their products in a more sophisticated way. And it is touching lives. We just announced our 5th season, and we've literally had tens of thousands of small towns compete to be selected to participate in the program. And it's part of our commitment to our community. It's consistent with our values. Our brand promise is very simple, that we believe in that we're champions for business so communities can thrive. And we see it as a self-fulfilling cycle, and we see ourselves as having an important role in driving that transformation, which is more than just a great product. It's about how do we help communities succeed, and we're doing that by helping businesses succeed.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Super cool.
I'd like to change gears just slightly to trust. We kind of edged into it before when we were talking about automation and artificial intelligence, but we're asking consumers to make a big leap when we're introducing these new services. We're asking them to make a big leap when we're saying, nah, don't cut me a check, do this other thing. Or signing up for a robo-advisor or and so on and so forth. So how are we thinking about trust as it pertains to data? And I know a whole bunch of people who just wouldn't make that leap, and now that leap is coming about because of technology. So I'm curious how you're each thinking about it in your from your respective positions in your companies. As far as how are you looking at making sure the data is protected? How making sure that they feel that way? It's as much marketing as it is the actual practices. Just there's a lot changing.
Data protection and privacy is incredibly important in our business. We have 4,600 financial institutions that rely on us to take personally identifiable information, translate it and put it on a piece of paper, and put it in an envelope and mail it to somebody. And we do it 150,000 times a day. And we've been doing it for 105 years. So we feel like we have an incredibly special relationship with the consumer and with the financial institution that relies on us to do that. So of course we have multiple levels of safety and security, but it's really much more than just policies or procedures. It's a culture. It's a way people feel about their work, and they have to own it, and they have to feel a sense of commitment to the security of the enterprise. And I think that's something we cultivate in our organization throughout all of our facilities, that if you see something, you're supposed to say something. If there's a problem, you have to own it. We tell people all the time it's not good enough to show up and throw up. You got to show up and say, here's a problem, here's how I'm going to try to attack the problem. So we drive a real sense of ownership around security, and that's in a way build trust.
Yep.
Trust doesn't happen trust is not something that you just get. You only get it when you earn it, and I think our team understands that.
Sally, is it just because you're speaking their language that they're willing to trust your company? How to best
Well, it's
cater
not
to
speaking
this?
their language. I think it's being something where they recognize themselves, where it sort of feels like it makes sense to them. Both from the website, which feels like other websites she's on, other apps she's in, as opposed to the typical financial services website. I have to tell you, though, I didn't really realize how difficult what we were trying to do at Ellevest was when we started. And quite frankly, if I'd sat down and really thought about it, I don't know I would have had the energy to do it. Because she doesn't trust the industry. She doesn't quite know why she doesn't trust the industry, but the financial crisis is still something that the older of we call her L, of our L's remembers. She's typically not happy with what she's receiving from the industry. Certainly in the wealth management side, she ranks it close to dead last in terms of her satisfaction amongst certain industries. And as we were going in, we first had to win her trust before she'd give us a penny. And of course, we started with hi, we're Ellevest. You've never heard of us before. We have no investing track record. We're investing in a whole new way that if for the younger L's, you'll ask your dad about, and he'll say, no, this is ridiculous. What is goals-based investing? You can't speak to anybody. we want you to change your behavior. Your money's now in cash. We want you to send it to us online, again, without speaking to anybody, and you could lose everything. Oh, wait. You've been told your whole life that you're not good with money, and that you're not good at math, and you're not good at investing, and that you need to budget and coupon clip and save. Oh, one more thing. You've been told that for women is inferior. And in fact, when we launched, we went right at the Ellevest, Invest Like a Woman. A double-digit % of women said, this is sexist. How dare you? I don't need your dumbed-down, ridiculous, remedial financial education app, right? I hate you. I don't know if they got to I hate you, but that's how I remember it in my mind.
That's how you
A double-digit % of women. Not one single solitary woman said, for women, it must be better. Not one. And so we had all these hurdles before we ever got to information security and hi, we're a fiduciary, et cetera. And we just had to chip away. We had to build an excellent product. We didn't have the luxury like some of the digital advisors that came before us of going in and having double-digit % attrition rates because the product wasn't quite right. We had to have it really as close to great as we could before we launched. And then we also found that meeting her where she was and engaging with her where she was on social media and a ton of content and slowly becoming part of her lives so that we could slowly build up, that level of trust for her. But it just, if I had really thought about it, I just wouldn't have. I would have, because our mission's so big, but I just would have drank a lot more.
Sure. Still can.
And
Right. Baron, the trust issue with athletes, performers, artists, if I may, in all facets, are also a major thing.
Yeah, I mean, trust is a feeling, right? You have to have consistency, routine, right? And with trust comes, success. Success builds that as well. And so when you're thinking about, how do you get your teammate to trust you, right? You have to get on their level, right? You have to make sure that, you give up you give up some part of yourself to connect with them on their level. The consistency every day, and we're working out to get it to a championship. It's like not all teams are great teams because, you got free agents and things like that. Like how do you pull all these people in a team mechanism into, kind of one common goal? And that's a feeling, right? A feeling of comfortability, and then consistency and routine. And so just like you were talking about, once you went to social media, right, and you start to target, her and talk to her on her level and give her, a level of comfort, right, and you're doing it every day, then that's how you build trust. And I think, the same thing, you guys have already had trust built in your DNA, right? So now it's just a matter of, kind of getting down and dirty, right? And being able to, reallocate that message and that program, to make sure that, each and every individual that's looking up to you or looking to you for information, that it's a certain feeling, right? And then every day you just got to tell them the same thing. And that's usually, for us in sports, how we build trust. And I think even for what we're doing for business inside the game, like we're constantly on the road. We're at there's a dinner, All-Star Weekend, there's a summit, we're constantly showing up, right? And we're putting the athlete, in these seats so they start feeling more and more comfortable. And, as we continue to, build success, they come and they hopefully will replace me, right? So they can be sitting here and I can have a vacation one day. But it builds that team, that teammanship, that camaraderie, right? And then that's how you're able to get everything that you need, whether it's a customer, teammate, player, whatever.
So the future of finance is to just not hog the ball. Right?
Yeah, pass.
Right.
Pass the ball.
Okay. but in all seriousness, what I'm hearing is here we are talking about the future of financial services, but it's not really the technologies that are the problem. It's really just understanding your customers better and bringing that to bear as you deploy these things. Would you all agree? just right down the line. Barry, would you agree?
I would agree, but I would also say that I think folks that have been trying to innovate in the space continue to innovate in a very narrow place, which makes point solutions rather than answers to problems. And so I think the organizations that are going to succeed as in disrupting financial services will be those that really find a holistic solution that's interoperable or ubiquitous, in addition to being trusted and easy and convenient, because that's why it works at banks today. So someone has to be able to replace that in order for them to be very successful over time.
Right on. Sally, yes, no?
Well, look, I think it's all about a high degree of personalization. And do you see me, and are you solving my problem? And so, you know, to take one analogy with social media, as we looked at what some others do with social media, they talk at you. So are you talking with me, not talking at me? Are you providing solutions that feel customized that solve my particular problems, as opposed to, hey, here's a bank account? Right, and so moving from one to the other. Again, I get it. At a big company where you've been enormously successful, where moving into the future, greater digitization can mean more valuable to the user and the customer, less profit margin for you. I get it. I was there. That's a very difficult transition to make, particularly when you don't know you're going to be successful. But if you don't make that transition and these barriers to exit come down, right, and those NPS scores don't go up, it's going to take it's going to take a while, but the future will not be bright.
Barry, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A few
I'm
words.
sorry.
Well, thank you for talking with us, all of us. Please, a round of applause for my panelists, please. Thank you.